You're listening to the Jewish Entrepreneur Podcast with Debbie Sasson, episode number 177. Welcome to the Jewish Entrepreneur Podcast. I'm your host, Debbie Sasson. I went from being a financial advisor, author, and chronic under-earner to building my business to six figures as a financial planner and money mindset coach, and then onto multiple six figures as a full-time money and business coach. I help entrepreneurs create money-making businesses and build wealth using sales and money mindset strategies and in alignment with authentic Jewish values. Now, let's dive in to today's show. Hello, my friends, and welcome back to the podcast. I am recording and speaking to you today from Los Angeles. As you might recall, life goes on so fast. I don't know how you would recall. But the last time I recorded a podcast for you, I was actually in Israel and we were in the middle of or at the end of the 12-day war with Iran. And thankfully that finished, the skies opened up. And today, as I'm recording, it is July 2nd. It is my daddy's birthday. And I am so grateful that I'm able to be here and spending time with my family. My husband is actually arriving today. I spent some time in Los Angeles with my sister. She's going to be going through some medical issues and treatments over the course of the next several months. It has been such a blessed opportunity to spend time with my families. And there is nothing like a war, what can I say, to remind you of what is really important in life. So thank you so much to God for bringing me here. Really, I have only praises. Thank you to our national airlines, El Al, for it was so quick. What can I say? I actually had a flight scheduled for Thursday, but it had been canceled. And then there were only flights going out, supposedly 50 people at a time. You had to get on a list. I wasn't even thinking about getting on a list. It was like, my family's in Israel. I would love, as much as I would love to travel to Los Angeles, be with my family. I did not think it was going to happen, but my travel agent said, no, sign up. You just never know. And Wednesday afternoon, I got word that I was scheduled to fly out between Thursday night and Friday. And thank God, Hodot Lashem Ki Tov, I am so grateful that I'm here. Now I want to share a podcast episode with you, which for every person in business, and especially every woman in business, is critically important. And why do I say every woman in business? Hey, I get it. I'm a mom. Here I am with my family. What often happens during the summertime is some of us like turn down the fire on our business. We have other things that are going on, and that's part of the beauty of running your own business. There is a work life, I don't know, I don't call it work life balance, I call it work life harmony, because you've got your family, you've got the summer, you've got your holidays. Your body needs to renew, rest, rejuvenate. And doing a mid year performance review might be one of those things that you put on the back burner. I'll get to it maybe tomorrow, maybe next week, when we're not on holidays anymore, when everything goes back to regular, to structure, then I'll do it. And it gets pushed under the carpet and it just doesn't happen. So I want to talk to you first about exactly what a mid-year performance review is, why it's important, and I'm going to give you some steps and even some journaling questions so that it will be very useful and successful for you in your business. I definitely want you to spend time with your family. I definitely want you to go to the beach or go swimming in the pool, go hiking, do whatever you do, have barbecues, have a beautiful, blessed time with your families. And you know what? As women in business and the beautiful men that are listening to this episode as well, as people in business, we get to have it all. And I think the old model, the old bro model of hustle, like barely spend time with your family, that's not how we're doing business anymore in 2025. So let's talk about number one, what a mid year performance review is. And I have a lot of experience with this because I worked 3 years on Wall Street. I worked at the Bank of Israel for 18 years. So it is a corporate thing, part of the corporate structure to do a mid-year performance review. And when I did them with my bosses at the time, I was the employee, I had an employer. It was a very much part of the protocol of how you run your business. Now, you, as someone who's running a small business, I want you to think about it as you having two roles. You are the employer, the CEO, and you are also an employee, which, by the way, you can do the same the same thing, the same review, the same activity with your contracted workers. If you have employees on your team, you can do this performance review. But I also want you to think about it as you, as the leader of your business, do a performance review of your leadership. And you, as the employee of your business, do a performance review of your employees showing up, how committed you were to your business, how much follow through did you have to your business. We have two roles as the owners of small businesses. I like to say we're the queen bee, that's the CEO, and we are the worker bee. So we are also the ones doing all the work. So did you perform at a 90% to 100% level as both the CEO and the employee? And I think that that's really important. We want to do this review, not so that we beat ourselves up. That is never, ever the goal of doing a performance review. But what often happens is that we forget, number one, just how far we've come. We forget what we did accomplish. So we want to make sure that we're celebrating what we did accomplish during the first 6 months. But again, where did your leadership thrive? And where did your leadership lack? Did you have a strategy in place? Were you intuitive? Were you focusing on expanding your skill set? Were you focused on expanding the network of people, the marketing that you do? And did you carry that out? So, this is really going to matter, this performance review, for tracking, right? What gets measured gets improved. So, we want to track your performance. We want to know what worked. We want to know what didn't work. We want to know why it didn't work. Was it because there was a war in your country? And so 2 weeks for sure out of the month of June, you were stuck in survival mode. You were in fight, flight, freeze, and you were running to your bomb shelter several times a day. Or did you not perform well as a leader, right? You had a strategy, but then you didn't, push on. You didn't encourage your worker bee self to actually take action. Were you winging it? Were you just throwing spaghetti at the wall? You didn't have an overriding plan for your business. And then, of course, how can your employee, how can you do your best performance if you're not leading? And that's going to cost you business. And that's going to cost you growth. It's going to cost you money. It's going to cost you really growing faster. We all go through ups and downs and phases of our business. We grow, we reevaluate, we pivot, we do new things. But if you're not doing these mid-year performance reviews, you lose a lot of information and you forget just how far you've come. So we want to make it structured. We want to make it prepared. You want to find time in your calendar. If you don't put it in your calendar and tell yourself that on Thursday from 10 a.m. to 12 a.m., I'm going to sit down and review my year, I bet you it's not going to happen. There's always going to be something more important that's going to get in the way. Your kids are going to want you to take them on a trip. You're going to want to go to a yoga class, whatever it is. So make sure that you take this time, make it a real time to review your progress. My clients in my membership program, Wired for Wealth, have been doing their performance reviews. They started last week. We've been continuing this week. And they've had so many insights. And I gave them like a few basic questions, but I also encourage them to go deeper. So, one question and then to list out 6 things. For example, how did you show up in your business? What worked for you? What did you learn about yourself? And write down 6 things you learned about yourself in the past 6 months. So I want to make sure that you take time, you think about it, you give it thought, you give it energy, because that is what's going to help you improve the next 6 months, 12 months, and 18 months in your business. This is a time to learn. This is a time to notice. This is a time to give yourself feedback as the leader of your business. And this is time to give yourself feedback as the employee in your business, always with the goal to improve. You want to be able to identify the areas where you did really, really well. For example, when I look at my migration from one membership platform, which was Thinkific, to my new membership platform, Kartra, I think that that went really well. I knew for about a year that I was going to be migrating. I wasn't under pressure. I didn't feel like it had to be done from yesterday till today. And I had a structured process broken down. I brought my assistant on board and we did it together step by step. We even finished about a week ahead of time. And there were some hiccups along the way because that's what happens. Whenever you want to put a plan into place, you always run into like things that you never expected. There are going to be potholes in the road on your path to getting things done. So we learned, we grew, we implemented, and we were able to check off the boxes as we went along. And we want to really notice if you got lazy, if you got distracted. And let me tell you, in this era of social media, it is so easy to get distracted by what everybody else is doing. So, did you keep your blinders on? Did you have your strategy? Did you have your path and keep going, implementing what you know for your business? Or was your brain like running all over, stalking the competitors, looking what other people were doing, thinking that you weren't doing it right, thinking that, something was wrong with you? This is just valuable feedback. It's not to beat you up, it's not to beat you down. So I want you to really look at this as a time where after you've implemented something in your business, and 6 months is a very nice period of time, you've implemented, you are now getting that data back to use for analysis. It's really a black and white analysis. We're not going to get emotional about it, but you want to be engaged in this process of performance review so that you as a leader and you as an employee can do better. Let's talk about adding goals into this process. At the beginning of 2025, I'm hopeful that you set an income goal for your business. Now, the question is, are you actually on track to meet your income goal for the business? Let's say your goal is to make $250,000 in your business in 2025, and then you want to split that up. Halfway through the year would be $125,000. Are you on track? Have you put the pieces in place to meet your goals? And sometimes when I'm saying pieces in place, maybe you had some structural foundational pieces that you were putting in place. For example, my migration from one membership platform to another membership platform. So it's possible that my business didn't grow as much as I was planning in the first half of the year because I was working on the foundations. And that's something to notice is that, just like if there is street works, if there's road works, oftentimes in many cities all over the world, right? The city planning is expanding the roads, and sometimes you've got to dig up the roads and you've got to remove all the old pipes. You have to remove all the old tar and gravel and whatever's there. Then you have to lay new pipes. You have to cut into the mountains on the side to expand the road. And it's only after the foundational pieces have been put in place and you smoothed out the tar on the road, and now the road can accommodate more cars. So if you were doing some foundational work in your business and putting those pieces in place, maybe you didn't have the stellar, just based on money, first 6 months that you wanted to, but now all of your ducks are in a row. And now you can go forward and you can create, whatever you were looking at in terms of your goals for the second half of 2025. So make sure that you go back to what were planning at the beginning of the year and you're measuring yourself against what you planned for you. Always measure yourself against you. Don't look at what your friends are doing. Don't look at what people in your networking group are doing. Don't look at what other people on the internet are doing. Measure you against you. How was your performance as an employee and as a leader? And then what we want to know is what needs to be improved, right? If there are things that were working, we want to double down on what was working in the business. For example, I ran a number of master classes in the first half of 2025. I read one on I ran a masterclass on CEO leadership. I ran a masterclass on messaging, on 100 days of planning. By the way, let me just give you a little insight. I love to break up my year not in 6-month buckets of time. So you might be asking me, Debbie, why are you doing this podcast episode if you really like working in 100-day increments? And I'll tell you, because oftentimes, just from an economic point of view, from an accounting point of view, 6 months is a great period of time to look at. And that's what your accountants want. Some people even have fiscal year ends at the end of June. So I do like to do this, and it is a great time to do that review. But in terms of actually getting things done, like taking those foundational pieces, strategy pieces, I like to break down my business, the practical business strategy into 100 days. Also, I like to look at the second half of the year because people come back from summer holidays and then the Jewish holidays, and then there is this push in the last quarter of every calendar year. And we notice it that economic activity really spikes in the last quarter of every calendar year. So if you do this mid-year review now, before you go on summer holidays, before you like clock out or check out for 2 weeks or 3 weeks or whatever you want, then you are not going to come back at when the school year gets back in session and be like, "Oh my gosh, what am I doing? What's happening?" And then you're gonna, take a long time to rev up your car. It takes a while to go from park to cruising at 60 miles an hour, 70 miles an hour. So if you do your review now at the very beginning of the summer holidays, you can have ideas like marinating in your mind, and they're just going to be becoming beautiful and tasty, and all the flavors are going to meld together while you're sitting by the poolside. So that's why I love doing this mid-year review. And then I plan, the strategic part of my business for 100 days at a time. And so I did a masterclass on that, did a masterclass on investing, and also on money. I did the wealth frequency masterclass, and I learned things about my business. I did two 3-day masterclasses. I did one 5-day masterclass. And I learned for me, for example, that the 5-day masterclass took way more out of me than the 3-day masterclass. It was scheduled over a weekend. I thought that would be a great time for me to refresh, rejuvenate, but it was always, remember that marinating, simmering in the back of my mind. It didn't work for me and the way I manage my energy. So, yay, I learned something, and I'm not going to do the 5-day masterclass again. So that's why these mid-year reviews are so important. We want to make sure that you are connected with your business. We also want to know, like, what skills do you need? Things have been changing so quickly in the world of AI. Do you need to learn more about AI, whether you are using ChatGPT or Claude or Perplexity or something else to help you write a script for a podcast? Are you using it to create images, to do colors, to create flyers for your business? There is so much happening out in the world. When you do your mid-year review, you can ask yourself, like, what needs to happen for the next 6 months that I haven't yet taken on for the first 6 months? So that's why you want to do it. You want to do it because it's a check-in. You want to do your mid-year review so that when you come back from whatever summer holidays you're taking, you want to be able to have some momentum still moving you in your business so you don't have to go from 0 to 60 or 0 to 100 kilometers an hour. You want to give yourself feedback as a boss and feedback as an employee, because you want to know, where do you need to set stronger boundaries. You want to know where you need to upgrade your standards. Do you need to upgrade your standards in terms of the people on your team? Do you need to upgrade your standards in the way you focus so that you don't let your mind wander all over the place? Do you need to expand, right? I think that expanding yourself in business and not being okay with where you are, that's how we grow as people. When you go and you work out physically, you expand your capabilities in terms of lifting, in terms of walking and running, your health goals. We expand our health goals. So I expand because that's who I am. I invest in my business because that's who I am. I create content because that's who I am. I sell products and services because that's who I am. So this is where I want to check in and see what needs to be up leveled and upgraded and what standards do I need to put in place. So many of my clients became consistent sending out a weekly newsletter the first 6 months of the year. One of my clients became consistent sending a monthly newsletter. She'd never sent email newsletters before, and now she's doing that consistently every month. So this is where you get feedback about what is working in your business, what's not, and what are you going to improve for the next 6 months. So here's some questions that I really want to share with you that I think are going to be so helpful for your performance review. Number one is looking back, and you can do this month by month, January, February, March. What worked in your business? What are you most proud of in your business? What are you most proud of as a leader, as a CEO? What are you most proud of as an employee? What do you really feel good about, and what do you want to celebrate? So often what happens is we forget. So I really suggest that you take your Google Calendar. If you're still one of those people who works with a paper calendar, I don't. I finally graduated. It took a few years for me to graduate to digital. It's been many years already. But look back in your calendar because we forget. Are you proud that you were interviewed on a podcast? Are you proud that you migrated a membership program? Are you proud that you actually did a webinar or a masterclass? And even if only 3 people showed up live, like it doesn't matter. You actually expanded yourself because you did something new and you did something different. What fears did you overcome? And we all have fears in our businesses. And what we do is we go forward. We gather up all of our courage to meet our fears. So note what you did that you think a year ago your younger self never would have done. And there was fear, there was concern, there was hesitation. You were tentative maybe about it, but you overcame that thing and you're so proud of yourself. Maybe it was raising prices. So, as an employer and as an employee, write down. It's so, so helpful. Write it down. Don't just like check it off mentally in your mind. What are you most proud of for the first 6 months of the year? Because that is part of your performance. When you remind yourself of all the amazing things, you're going to be able to take that with you for the next 6 months. The second question you want to ask yourself is what challenges did you face? And again, there's the challenge of the war. There might be health issues in your family. There might be something that you were facing. Maybe it was a tough conversation. Was there someone on your team you hired, you fired? One of my clients mentioned that one of the things that she had to grow in this year as an employee was having a contracted worker on her team, hiring and firing. So that became the person that she is, not to get emotional about it, to understand that yes, this is a person and she has a family and it is uncomfortable for you to have to say, no, this isn't going to work out. But you as a leader, right? You face that challenge, you overcome that challenge, and now you get to take that with you. So notice what challenges you faced this year. And also, if you have challenges coming up in the future, maybe you know that there are already some challenges coming up, or just notice, write down how did you handle that challenge? Who did you become? That's always the question is who did I become when I faced this challenge? And write it down. And I really do recommend that you put like 2 hours aside into your calendar so that you can think about these questions, so that you can flip through your digital calendar, so that you can notice and write down and remember who it is that you have become by really meeting these challenges head on. And then, of course, there are skills that you learned. So many of my clients are learning the value of learning AI. Again, whether it's a ChatGPT or a Claude or some other tools, and there are so many. It feels like every day, two, three, four, like there are new there's new AI software, new AI services, or ways that you can improve your business and speed things up. But there's also the danger that you could be losing time. So, also, what skills did you develop in the first 6 months of the year? And really think about what you want to develop in the second half of the year. You can't do it all, right? There is a limited amount of time. You want to be in your business, marketing your business, serving your clients. So you really want to know where you want to put your focus in the second half of the year. And if you were working on developing certain skills and then your mind got like pulled all over the place, you just want to notice that. But this question is so important for you again as the leader. You might be thinking, what does my business need? What sort of skills does my business need in order to grow and develop and thrive in the second half of 2025? And you as an employee, where did you feel resistance? Because a lot of this AI, it's just so new and it might feel so, you might feel a barrier resistance to doing it. And, learning it a little bit at a time, not putting pressure on yourself, not comparing yourself, no compare and despair. That's not what we want to do. So make sure you're thinking about the skills that you as a leader and you as an employee need for your business. And then really what I really love to ask the question, what did I learn about myself? And this is one of the questions that I ask my clients in Wired for Wealth is like me as a leader, and you can do it me as an employee. What did I learn about myself? Because we're in this business because our business is here to serve our life and we show up with our full self. Did you learn that You work well under pressure, and many of us, we have a deadline, we work really well. But if you also learned that you don't need to work under pressure, or maybe in 2024, let's use the example. You created $100,000 of income in your business in 2024, and maybe you learned about yourself that when you're focused, when you tweak your prices, raise them a little bit, you can actually create the same amount of income in 6 months or 8 months. And you learned when you stay more focused, you have stronger boundaries, you up level your standards, standards for yourself, standards for your clients, standards just all the way around. You maybe learned that you can actually do more in less time. You might be learning that a lot of the things that you were doing in your business aren't even important. If you look at really the breakdown of how much income you earned by type of product, type of service you're offering, type of client you're working with, we've talked about the Pareto principle in the past, the 80-20 rule. You want to make sure that you are focusing on those areas where you are making the most return on your investment of time, energy, and money. So really notice, what did you learn about yourself? What did you learn about your business? What's working, what's not working, and what are you going to do for the next 6 months? Really notice what is standing out for you and how you're going to change things in the next 6 months of the year. And then when you think about your future self, your highest self, like let's say, like I have a goal of creating $1 million in my business in 1 year. I have a 7-figure business. I've made $1 million lifetime, more than that in my business, but my goal is to create $1 million in my business in 1 year. When I go to my future self, how does she show up? What are her boundaries? Who are the clients that she's working with? What does her pricing look like? How does she invest in herself? How does she grow? How does she expand? Because that's really how you're going to take yourself forward for the next 6 months, 12, 18, 24 months, when you think about your business from the future, because that future self is going to be doing this same review, the same performance review, business review, and she's going to look back and say, wow, look what I accomplished in the last 6 months. I created $500,000, or I created $1 million of revenue in my business. What did I do? And you can really think about that and look backwards and say, that's where I need to level up. That's where I have, some missing links. That's where I have things that are, I need to like polish my boots a little bit, buff them up, shine them up. So that's how you want to focus. All right. So now I want to give you a few more questions. And if you have a pen and a paper, I want you to write them down. The only way that you are actually going to get useful information and useful feedback out of this podcast episode is for you to take the time to write these things down so that you can implement them going forward. Again, question number one is, what are you most proud of during this first 6 months of the year? What did you learn about your business in the first 6 months of the year? What did you learn about yourself in the first 6 months of the year? And there's yourself as the leader, and there's yourself as the employer. What worked? What didn't work in my business in the first 6 months of the year? And note why. And then what do I want to do differently in the next 6 months of the year? What are my goals for the next 6 months of the year? Who do I need to hire and bring onto my team in order to achieve my goals? What skills do I need to develop in order to achieve my goals? And then you'll also want to know what sort of obstacles and challenges might happen, what might come in the way. None of us could have predicted that this 12-day war with Iran was going to happen. So you always want to leave yourself a little bit of buffer time. I mean, I was definitely not so focused on my business in the middle towards the end of June, and then I traveled. So you also want to notice what potential obstacles could come up that could just really knock you out of orbit. And you want to make sure that you either have a strategy for it, you have money set aside for it, but there needs to be some sort of awareness that it is never smooth sailing. There's always going to be obstacles. So if you look back at the last 6 months, like what sort of obstacles came up? There are, of course, the force majeure, things that happen that are outside of our controls. But where did obstacles? Is it family stuff that might come up? We all have family, whether it's parents, siblings, children. Is it community challenges that might come up? Make sure that you build in buffer time and ways that you know that you're going to be able to deal with the challenge. And then there's always this very important question. It's such a simple question, but it could change the trajectory of your business over the next 6 months. What am I saying yes to? And what am I saying no to? This is part of your boundaries and your standards, but what you say no to is so important. We have 24 hours in the day. We have 5, 6 days a week, depending on how many days you work in your business, and we cannot do it all. Now, you might say no to something for you, and that means you need to bring somebody on your team you need to hire in order to do it. Or it might be that you say no for now. You might say no altogether. You might delete it. But if you have a plan and a strategy going forward for the next 6 months, you're going to be saying yes to items 1, 2, 3, and 4, whatever your items are. And you have to be willing to say no. If you're in this frenetic energy that you have to do this and this and this and this, it's just not going to work. So make sure that you know what you're saying no to so you can bring yourself back. If your mind starts wandering, because mine does, it's like, oh, maybe just this. But you have to put in firm boundaries with yourself, that little like thought gremlin that's going to take you off course. And it so often happens, fearing taking the next step on the strategy that you already planned. You're like, no, maybe I'll just do that. So make sure you have a list of what you're saying no to. And then this is really important. I want you to write down 6 positive beliefs about money that you already have. Does money flow to you easily? Does money flow to you in all sorts of different amounts? Tens, hundreds, thousands, 10,000s, right? What are the positive beliefs about money? That money, when you make more of it, you can give more of it. You can give more charity, give more tzedakah, as we say in Hebrew. What positive money beliefs do you have? Do you hold for yourself? As a business owner, the purpose of your business is to serve clients. You stay in business by being profitable, by making money. If you have negative beliefs about money, if you have negative beliefs about people with money, that is definitely going to be a challenge and an obstacle for you staying in business. So write down what you already believe about money. And then I want you to make another list, 6 thoughts of positive beliefs you want to make true for you around money. A lot of people come to me and their feeling is it's hard to make money. People like me don't make money. Money breaks up families. Money makes you entitled. Money makes you arrogant. I want you to write the positive beliefs about money that you want to become true for you. You want to work on these beliefs around money. You want to develop them for you, and you want to make sure that you become the person who feels really good about money, that money is how you give back to the world. When you make more, you can give more. And I want that to be true in your body all the way down to your tippy toes. So let's just focus on what are the next steps for you. You're going to not just listen to this podcast. Obviously, if you're driving, don't do this. But your next steps are really to sit down, go to your calendar, and put a block of time into your calendar when you're going to do this mid-year performance review. If you listen to this podcast episode and you do not take action, then what can I say? You're not going to make the changes that you want to make. But if you actually take the time, you sit down, you block out the time for you to do your mid-year review, I absolutely know that the next 6 months in your business are going to be different for you as the CEO of your business and you as the best employee in your business. Thank you so much for tuning in today, and I look forward to seeing you next week on the Jewish Entrepreneur Podcast. Bye-bye for now. Thanks for listening to the Jewish Entrepreneur Podcast. If you want to stop underselling and under-earning and close more sales, you need to clear the limiting money beliefs that are sabotaging your business growth. Head on over to debbiesasson.com/mindset and download my free Money Mindset Workbook. Uncover and dissolve money blocks like hundreds of other entrepreneurs who are now building 6, multi-6, and 7-figure businesses and creating true financial freedom.